We'll give the GoToWebinar a moment to start recording. And again, thank you everybody for attending. This is the Tuesday classroom session from Shortcuts. My name is Noah and I will be presenting. And today we're going to be looking at reports in Shortcuts. This is the basics class. So if it's been a while since you've used Shortcuts, or if you're new to Shortcuts and you're not quite sure what reports you should be looking at, today is going to be the session for you. Now, if you have to leave early, that's okay. We are recording. We will send a link to this recording out a little bit later today. And if you have any questions, again, and you have to leave early, don't worry, we will accept questions after the fact. You can reach out to us on our email or our help desk and our social media, and we will get back to you. So today, reporting through Shortcuts. What are some of the basics? What should you absolutely know? So let's take a look. So as with our other presentations, this one's going to be approximately 30 minutes. We are recording and the audio has been muted on your side. Hopefully you can still hear me. And we will allow questions at the end unless it's something pressing to do with a particular slide that we're looking at. We will allow some time at the end for questions. So the focus on today, reports through Shortcuts. So as you may know, Shortcuts has over 120 potential reports that you could be running. And if you're new to Shortcuts, that may seem like overkill. Every report, of course, has a function, but we're going to learn what are the basics with reporting and what are the ones you should be looking at least at the start. So the ones we're going to focus on are the trading summary, measuring future appointments, how to look for your top selling products and services, how your employees, how your staff is performing, and of course, client retention, because without repeat business, we're all going to be in trouble. So when it comes to reporting in Shortcuts, specifically for services, how does Shortcuts know to track things? So how does Shortcuts know what is the difference between a color service and a haircut? In the service configuration screen, you should notice that there's a button at the bottom of the screen and it looks like a little projector screen, and it says reports category. When you choose that button, a window opens up and it shows you 10 potential reporting categories that you can create. Now, depending on the size of your business, maybe you're only going to use one or two of these reports. And if you're a very large organization, you might need 10 or even more than that. So think about the services that you offer. If you're a barbershop and you offer two basic service categories, you offer either a haircut or some sort of beard or barbering service, then you might want to create two reporting categories to correspond with those services. You'll create a category for haircuts and you'll create a category for beard services. If you're a salon, if you're a spa, and you offer chemical, waxing, other aesthetic services, then you may want to separate those into their own individual reporting categories. So keep that in mind. How you configure your reports is going to help you in the end when you're tracking everything. So look at the way you currently have yours set up and see if you don't want to combine categories or add additional reporting categories. Once you do that, when you go into any service that you've already created or any service that you're about to add to your salon or your spa or your barbershop, once you create the basic details, what is the name of the service? What is the time? What is the price for the service? In the middle of the screen, this is how Shortcuts helps you track it. There's going to be a number of checkboxes for your reporting categories. So Shortcuts will say, block 1 counts towards which category. So this is where you would click the particular checkbox. So if I added a new service, Clipper Cut, for example, I would say it's 30 minutes, it costs $20 odd, and then I'd say this counts towards my cut category. It doesn't count as a color, it doesn't count as a waxing service. So when I do a count on my cuts, I know exactly what types of services I'm selling. So double check that. You'd actually be surprised at the number of Shortcuts customers that have been modifying their menu throughout the years, have been updating their times and prices, but sometimes forget to track their services. So double check your services. Look at your prices, your times, and see which reports they report into. Now, if you decide that some of your staff member should have access to certain reports, you can actually set security against that. So if you have an assistant manager or receptionist and you say, well, this person I trust to have access to these reports. If you go into general security and choose what access they should have, there's actually a checkbox for all of the 100 plus reports and shortcuts. So maybe everybody on staff, at the very least, should have access to the tips report. And I've seen that at a lot of the businesses I work with. So they will check they have permission to access reports, but uncheck every report they should not be looking at. So when the staff member goes to the report screen, they see the one report they're allowed to access. Or again, if you have a manager and you want to give them permission to look at other reports, this is where you pick and choose what they should see. So let's actually look in shortcuts in an actual database at what I was talking about. How do we configure these things? So let me get out of the slideshow for a second and jump into shortcuts. So first things first, if I have not been keeping track on how my services are set up, how my reports are set up, I'm going to go under Setup on the bottom right into Services. So remember, before I go in here and before I start making changes to the services, the times or the prices, at the bottom of the screen, I'm going into my reporting categories. And I make sure that I've labeled all of my reports correctly. So these are the ones that I'm tracking. Now, let's say you have a salon or you have a spa that offers even more categories than the 10 default ones. Then what you might want to do is consider combining your reports. So for example, if I added additional services or service categories, I might consider combining the color and texture into one category and perhaps just call that color/chemical. So I know that's anything that requires a little bit of extra time or a break perhaps. So this way it would free up one of my reporting categories. So I could now add perhaps aesthetics. If I'm doing nail services, something like that, I would just combine these. So after you've set up all of your reporting category names, then to make sure that every service goes into the correct category, I'll open up the category name on the left side, choose the name of the service, balayage for example, and on the bottom right, I'm going to go to the details wrench. So I'll press the wrench button and I'll see this is my default time, my default price for a balayage. And then in the middle of the screen, what does this count towards? It's not a haircut, it's not a styling service. This is a color service. So I make sure to mark it as color so that when I do my reports, Shortcuts knows balayage is always a color service. And done. And I would go to the next one and just repeat the steps. Make sure they're all in the correct category. Go to details and you can see base color is already in the color category. So double check that, especially if you've been adding services into Shortcuts, but you don't remember how you're tracking them. Make sure you're going to the correct categories. Details, this is a color service. Full head lightener, details. This is a color service. And you'll go then to your next service category and repeat the process. So if I'm looking at my waxing services, I make sure this counts towards my hair removal category. And then if somebody on staff should have access to certain reports, that's when I would go to Setup Configuration. And on the left side of the screen, on the bottom left, I would go General, Security, and this is where you see your different categories: Manager, Receptionist, Director, Unassigned. So your location, your salon might only have 4: Owner, Manager, Employee, and Receptionist. At the top, when you go to Access, that's the second tab at the top, you would choose which level. So a manager, for example, if I alphabetize this list and go to Reports, a manager has access to reports. Which specific reports? All of the reports. Now I can always uncheck which ones the manager should not look at. And then I can do the same for receptionist or students or staff, however you want to organize it. You always have the ability to choose what reports they should access. So let's go back to the presentation. So now that you know how to configure the reports, how to tell Shortcuts track these services for these categories, when it's time to run the reports, what should you know? So again, there's more than 100 reports you can be looking at. When you go to Tools and Reports on the left side of the screen, we give you particular categories. Is this an appointment report category? A business category, clients, employees? So which category are you looking at? And then when you open the list, you get a number of different reports. Once you choose the name of that report, at the very top of the screen, we give you a description. So even if you've never seen all of the reports in Shortcuts, we tell you what's in the report, so you're never flying blind. Once you choose a report that you're interested in, employee hours, for example, at the bottom of the screen, you'll press the View button. By default, every report in Shortcuts is designed to look at a particular day. In this case, if I were to click on the reports for today, it will say, okay, do you want to run the report for Tuesday, May 26th? Or I can set a range and I say, no, I don't want to look at today's report. I want to set it from the 1st through the 14th and then press the View button. So you get to see the name, the description of the report, and you get to choose either a single day or a date range to run your report. But you have more options than that, depending on which report you look at. When you press the View button, before you choose a date range, if you look at the left side of the screen, you can have 3 potential options. The top one is setting a date range. The second one is if you want to choose a particular employee to see that report against. So if you just want to look at the report for one particular employee, then you will hit the button and then set who that person is and what is the date range. You may also have a miscellaneous button. Now, employees and miscellaneous, those buttons do not necessarily show up on every report. But if you go to miscellaneous, you have the potential to see one miscellaneous setting, which is usually, do you want to look at these numbers with or without tax? But some reports give you even more options. Do you want to see a breakdown of the specific products you sold, the actual individual items? Do you want to see the services? Do you want to see report definitions? And what report definitions are is a breakdown, an actual explanation of what was the formula that Shortcuts used to calculate these numbers. So whenever you run those reports, before you set your date range, just take a look at some of your options. So remember, look at the report title, look at the report description, especially if you're exploring. Look at your options. Set it against a particular staff member if you want to see a breakdown. And then run your reports for a complete analysis. So these are some of the reports that I usually talk about when I'm doing introduction training in Shortcuts. For the employees, for the owners actually, I say there's a few reports under the employee category you should know about. If you're tracking your staff on an hourly basis, take a look at your employee hours. Make sure that they're getting the correct attendance. If not, you have the chance to fix it before you do any sort of payroll. You want to look at the client's visit schedule. You want to look at the performance summary. So this will give you insights as to how the staff is actually working. And of course, for any business, the most popular report is your trading summary. So hopefully you're familiar with some of these reports. But again, if you're new to Shortcuts, what are the other reports you should be looking at? So the trading summary, first and foremost, for any business, regardless of if you're a walk-in barbershop or a high-end spa, you should absolutely know about your trading summary. So you're going to go to Tools, Reports, your End of Day category, Trading Summary. So for this particular report, depending on your business, you could run it every day before you do a deposit at the end of the night. Just take a look at what your business did that day. At the very least, consider running this for a week or a month to see how your business is performing. And on the trading summary screen, the nice thing about it, it's a one-page breakdown of everything that you've done, everything that the business has done. How many total services, products did you do? How many customers did you see? What were their averages? Were they male, female? Were they returning customers? What was the value of this? And then for your staff, what were their totals? What were their averages? So everything on a one-page, fairly easy to read report. So you should absolutely be looking at this if you're a business owner. Now, since a lot of our businesses are now starting to reopen after the mandatory closure in most states and most counties, you should also now be familiar with the value of your future appointments, especially if you're enabling online booking for your business. So to take a look at this report, you're going to go again to Tools, Reports. This time the report category is going to be Appointments. And this particular one, Value of Future Appointments. So instead of running it every day, you may consider it running for a week, perhaps the next week or the next month. And when that report comes up, this is the information you're looking for. So you can actually see what was the percentage that was booked for every staff members. What was the employee name? So who's getting these appointments? Who's not necessarily getting any future appointments? So you can focus on, okay, is it perhaps communication with a customer? Is some of your staff members, are they not getting customers to rebook with them? Or you have a new employee and perhaps they're not getting a lot of online bookings. So what can you do to try to change or try to help that situation? Plus, it will give you a breakdown. Whenever you click the name of an employee or double click the name of an employee on your screen, it'll give you a breakdown of what services the customers are coming in for and what are the customer names. So your future appointments, think about running that report every week for the next week or the next few weeks. So on the left side of the screen again, what's the percentage of appointments that your staff has for that period and what is their value? You'll get a total at the very top of the list. And on the right side, you'll have an actual bar graph to show you how your staff ranks when it comes to the value of all of their future appointments. And of course, for the business, at the very bottom of the screen, what is the total value for the appointments booked in that month? So with the trading summary, we know how the business is doing on a daily or a weekly basis. With the value of future appointments, we know what the value is, but you also know how the staff is being booked and whether or not we can do anything to try to improve that. So in addition to services, of course, you want to see what products are your best sellers. So when you go to tools and reports, this particular category is stock. And under stock, you're looking for top selling products. So this report, unlike the others, you want to run it for a past period. So usually the month before. And of course, with the exception of any closures due to pandemics, normally you would just run it for the previous month and see what did you actually do in retail. So on that screen, Shortcuts will actually give you a snapshot of what was the company, what was the particular product, and how many you actually sold. What was the value of that sale? What was your profit? And what was your percentage of profit? So don't just look at it as to what is the hot selling items. Look at the ones that really aren't moving. What can you do to try to incentivize that for your staff? Are you going to offer some sort of promotion next month to say, okay, I'm not really moving some Goldwell products. Maybe I'm going to do a Goldwell sale next month to try to get those numbers up. I'll let the staff know so that they can start pushing some of these products. So, of course, the more you know about what is and what isn't moving, the better it is you can address that for your business. So top selling products, that's under your stock category. And just like tracking your products, you can track your services. Very similar. So when you go to your reports, the category is services, top selling services. And again, you want to run this for the previous month. So this is why it's very important that you have your reporting categories configured correctly on your service screen. Otherwise, Shortcuts is not really going to help you count what you're actually doing. So on that window, it's a very similar organization to the top selling products, except it says just a total. How many blow dries? How many haircuts? How many styling? How many color, chemical services did you do in that period? And again, you can take a look at your prices. You can make adjustments. Okay, I'm selling a lot of this service, but I'm taking a hit because the value or the averages that the customer receives is a little bit different. I'm undervaluing my staff and my business, so I really need to adjust this, and hence it increases the profitability for that service. So be mindful of that and take a look and also consider, are some of the services coming in at a lower price because my staff tends to use a lot of discount? So maybe I want to just remind my staff, reinforce the idea that discounts should be used very sparingly and really only in times of a specific promotion, not just whenever the staff wants. So top selling products, top selling services, you should absolutely be looking at these. Now, the big one, employee performance summary. The nice thing about this is it's very similar to the trading summary. It's going to give you a one-page breakdown. It'll show every staff member name, all of the service categories you have, what their averages are, what their totals are, and were there any additional sales, whether it was for sundry, gift certificates, things like that. So in one page, you can absolutely see what every staff member is doing. So consider running an employee performance summary for the past week or the past month. So this particular report is located under Tools Reports. It's in the employee category, and it's the employee performance report. Now there is an advanced version of that report, and it's called Employee Performance Extended. So what's the difference between the two? So on the standard employee performance report, again, it's a one-page breakdown of every staff member and all of their totals for the services. But the extended one, this will give you a highly detailed breakdown, not just on their averages, but what is their conversion ratio when it comes to upselling products, getting rebookings, things of that nature. So when you run that report, again, consider running it for the past week or the past month. And every employee is going to have their own column. And under each column, it will give you the same totals as the traditional employee performance summary, but you can see you have much more detailed information. How many retail clients did a staff member get? What were their retail totals? What were their averages on retail? What was their conversion ratio for every service they had? What was their retail to service? Do they do a lot of retail? Do they not do a lot of retail? So these are things you can always reinforce with your staff. If there's a hot product and they're familiar with it and they know that they can let their customers know, hey, this would really work on your type of hair. Or I think this would help because if you're dealing with dryness or something, try this product. And then once they start to get those concepts, you actually see what the differences are over time. What's the breakdown of retail only? Their totals. Services only. Services for men, services for women. So you can see what are some of your staff members exceptionally good at, where are they weak at, and what can they do to improve. So this is a very, very good report, especially if you're concerned about your numbers. So again, let's take a look at some of these. We'll get out of the presentation. So in Shortcuts, Tools, Reports. So under End of Day, your trading summary. So this is the one-page breakdown of everything that happened for your business. But when you want to start dialing into your actual staff, we have, you scroll down under Employees, Performance Summary. So that's the standard report. And I'll view this for a little bit earlier this year. So I'm going to set my date range for perhaps the first 2 weeks in February. 1st through the 14th, view. So Shortcuts will generate my info, and these are all my totals for every service category, what my averages are, etc., etc. And if I really want to get into that information, that's when I would go into my extended report. Again, set my date range, February 1st through the 14th. Now, before I press view, if I want to get a breakdown on how Shortcuts calculated these things, I can go to miscellaneous and say, yes, show my definitions. So I know what exactly is the conversion ratio, and then view it. So every staff member will have their own individual column with a detailed breakdown of everything they did in that period. And of course, I can zoom in if I want on the top right, or sorry, on the top left. And I can go to the next page, and this is what the formulas were. How did Shortcuts calculate these totals? For your inventory, you can see what your top selling products are. For your services, what are your top selling services? Or what are the services for the staff? Products by employee, services by employee. So let's go back. Now, last but not least, client retention report. So you want to know how many customers are actually returning to your business. Are they returning to the same employees? Are they returning to different employees? How many have you lost? So when it's time to track client retention, you're going to go to Tools Reports. This is under the employee category, client retention. Now this one is a little bit different because up until now, we're telling Shortcuts analyze service, analyze retail, analyze any business info for the past week, for the past month, or show me what the value is for future appointments for the next week or the next month. But for client retention, it's a little more open-ended. So we need to tell Shortcuts, I want to look for how many customers I've retained from a certain period. So the example I usually use is for an entire month or an entire quarter, how many of the customers that visited me at the start of the year have visited me again in the past 90 days? So whatever date range you choose, always remember that Shortcuts is going to look at how many of these specific customers have returned in the past 90 days. So one good way to run it is to think about everybody from 2019. So you can literally select my start is January 1st, 2019. My end date is December 31st, 2019. So what Shortcuts is going to do is it's going to look at every customer that visited you last year and then try to figure out how many of those visited you in the past 90 days. How many visited the same employee? How many went to a different employee? How many did you retain? How many did you lose? So an entire year might be overkill. So that's why I want to say something like, okay, let's take a look at January of this year. From January 1st to January 30th, how many of those customers have visited in the past 90 days? And Shortcuts will say, okay, from this group in January, again, this is the number that returned. They went to the same employee, a different employee, or how many were lost. Whatever value you choose, just remember, always set the end date to be more than 90 days from today. Because of course, you may have a customer coming in tomorrow or the next day and they have an appointment. The client retention report will not keep those customers in mind. It'll say, no, you lost them because they haven't visited yet. So always set your start date well before 90 days and set your end date at least 90 days from today. So this is a tricky one to get, but once you understand that rule, it's 90 days for any group of customers that visited you in that period. So there's a handful of other reports you should be looking at. I've highlighted key reports today, so you should know absolutely where to look. So you're looking at training summary, client retention, employee performance, your rebooking breakdown, your top selling products and services. If you think your staff's doing a lot of discounting, there's actually a report for that. What are the reasons the staff are using? So you might want to let your staff know, okay, take it easy with the friends and family discounts. We're giving away too much on retail, or we're giving away too much on services. What's the value of your future appointments? Are you getting referrals? Is it referrals by another client? Is it referrals from your social media or your web pages? So you want to start tracking that for marketing purposes. So you know, is my Facebook campaign working? Is my advertising campaign working? Look at your service breakdowns. What are your best services? And of course, your product sales summary. So you just get a snapshot of everything that you've done with products in mind. So now that we have an idea as to what are the reports we should be looking at, we're going to open up the floor for questions. So you might be writing down notes right now. On the right side of your screen, if you're using GoToWebinar, you should have a little chat or a little question button. Go ahead and click in that row and type a message if you want. I'm going to check mine. And I'll give everybody just a few moments. And if you're watching this video after the fact, so I am going to send it to everybody that signed up. If you think of a question with regards to the reports today, let us know, let the help desk know, or reach out to customer success or even the education team, and we will get back to you. And if you don't have our contact info, you can even reach out to us on our social media. So go ahead and ask us on Instagram, on Facebook. We'll get back to you. All right. I don't think we have any questions. I'll check the chat window. And I don't see anything there. Oh, actually we have a question. So let's take a look. So Varen has a good question. Is stock the same as inventory? Yes, in some versions of Shortcuts, depends on if you're using a UK, a US, a Canadian version, we might have some words that are interchangeable. So if you're looking at your inventory reports and you notice that you don't have an inventory category, it might be under the stock category. Good question. Okay. All right. Well, if there are no other questions, so just remember, if you think of anything after the fact. Oh, Ken actually has one more question. Stylist, and so okay. How do we change an appointment made for a particular stylist, and so the business and not the stylist, and get the credit and generate a report for that? So let me take a look at this question. Hold on just a moment. How do we change an appointment made for a particular stylist, and so the business and not the stylist, and get the credit, generate a report for that? I think I understand what the question is. Let's take a look in Shortcuts. So if let's say we're using the appointment book, and of course everybody is off today, but we'll pretend. So if an appointment, we'll say Jasmine here, made an appointment, and we're going to put it under one of our staff names. This is a new client, and this customer is going to get a haircut. So we'll go cuts. Oh no, we're going to do some color. Full head highlights. So the appointment appears on the book. Let me zoom in a little bit. There we are. So Brianna was doing the service. Now, if Brianna did not actually perform this service and you wanted to assign it to a different stylist from the appointment book, you can click the light shaded area and move the appointment to any other staff member. So this is how you would physically move the appointment to somebody else. But let's say this customer was about to check out. So from the point of sale screen, if somebody's about to check out and we had mistakenly put this appointment under Brianna's name, so we want to make sure she doesn't get the credit, somebody else does. On the left side, where it has the employee name, I can click on it and say, no, Aubrey is the one that did this service, not Brianna. So that's how I can fix it after the fact. Now, if you want to see where any edits, where any changes were made for an appointment, we actually have a report for that. So if we go to Tools and Reports, and we go to Appointments, there's actually an appointment history report. So I can run it for today, and I can see, oh, this appointment was moved from Brianna to Aubrey or to any other employee. So appointment history will show you where those appointments were moved around. Okay. But remember, you want to catch all of those things before you do the actual checkout. Make sure the right employee gets credit for it or change it before that happens. So you never want it to get past this point. Now, if you do actually end the sale, and we'll do that, we'll actually check this customer out, and you forget, oh my gosh, no, Aubrey got credit, I just hit end sale, the wrong employee got credit for this visit. I've really messed up now. If you're an owner, you can actually fix this. So provided you haven't done an end of day, if you go to your transactions button at the top of the screen, it'll show you every visit you've had that day. And it'll show you which employee did the service. So if you royally messed up, you weren't paying attention, or the front desk wasn't paying attention, and they checked out a visit with the wrong employee, as an owner, you can choose the name of the employee from this window, and on the bottom left, change which staff member did the service. So I can change it back, and I can look for the person and say, no, it should have been Brianna. Are you sure you want to update this transaction? Yes, I do. So that when I run the reports, the right employee gets credit for that. But again, you don't want it to get all the way to this point before you catch it. But that is the sort of like the last thing that you can do if you've messed up or if the front desk wasn't paying attention. All right. I hope that answers your question, Ken. All right. Are there any other questions? And if not, you're welcome, Ken. So if you have questions, if you're watching this video after the fact, you can always reach out to us. Our customer care team, our customer success team is available. Give us a call, visit us on our Facebook page, visit us on our Instagram, ask a question. We will get back to you. So thank you all for attending. So this is the reports basic presentation. The next classroom session next week, we're going to be looking at some more advanced reporting. So especially if you're using the extended commission report, or if you're interested in calculating commissions for your staff that are outside of the standard way we calculate commissions and shortcuts, you may want to sit in on next week's classroom session. Anyhow, thank you all for attending, and I look forward to seeing you in the next session. Have a great day, everybody.